Chapter 7 The Unspooling Weave. With the teacup shattered and the door flung open by Mistress Glynis, the sounds carried to the courtyard gate. The waiting servants looked at each other nervously, their faces filled with unease. Should they go in or not? Lord Thorne, along with Lord Galen and Lord Corvin Blackwood, walked over and happened to hear the commotion. Their expressions changed, and they quickened their pace toward the door. Mistress Glynis came out hurriedly and blocked them. "My lady says it's too late and she wishes to rest," she said. Lord Cashin frowned. What happened? What was that noise? He looked over Mistress Glynis's shoulder and saw two figures in the room. Mistress Glynis lowered her head. "My lady believes the young lord's return was reckless." "Ah, so the siblings had a disagreement." Lord Cashin sighed. "Lara and Cale grew up together. This is the longest they've been apart. They must be worried about each other," he said, stepping toward the door. "Lara is injured and Cale has traveled far. They shouldn't fight." Mistress Glynis stepped forward again and bowed, blocking his path. "Yes, I have already advised them. The siblings have had a good cry and are fine now. My lady wishes for the young lord to rest immediately." In this house Lord Cashin was the master, but in this particular part of it, the servants would not let him pass unless the young lady inside spoke. Lord Cashin smiled, not at all displeased. He wouldn't get angry with a child or a servant. "Lara is the best at taking care of her brother. We don't need to worry," he said, turning to Lord Galen and Lord Corvin. "You are all weary from your journey. Get some rest tonight and we will talk tomorrow." Lord Galen and Lord Corvin had no reason to object. Lord Cashin called for the steward to arrange lodgings for the men from the Swordfall Marches and the Longew region and then left. Only Lady Elara Thorne's maids and servants remained outside the door. "You may go and rest," Mistress Glynis said. As usual, she stayed behind to await Lady Elara's orders, and the others obeyed hers. However, as she watched the others leave, Mistress Glynis's expression was not as calm as it usually was. She walked to the steps, her hands clenched. The lamplight on the walkway illuminated her pale face, which was filled with unease, anxiety, and most of all sorrow. The young lady was truly hurt. This was the first time Mistress Glynis had seen it with her own eyes. Her mind went back to the horrifying sight of the festering arm, and she shuddered, wondering what was underneath the bandages on her face. Mistress Glynis took a deep breath, suppressing the panic in her heart. Did she really not need to see a doctor or take medicine? Inside the room, Lord Thorne watched as his sister made his bed, his face just as pale as Mistress Glynis's. "Lara, do we really not need to get a doctor?" he asked again. After they had seen the injury, Lady Elara had lowered her arm, her sleeve covering the shocking wound. She had stopped their frantic questions, told them not to be afraid, that the injury was nothing, and instructed Mistress Glynis to stand guard at the door. Lady Elara turned to look at Cale. Although he was trying his best to act calm, the child's terror was uncontrollable after such a shock, and his small body trembled weakly. "Sometimes saying you're fine does not soothe those who care about you." "No, we don't," Lady Elara said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "My injury is not something a doctor can examine or cure. It's not really an injury." Cale looked surprised, and his panic subsided slightly. "If it's not an injury, then what is it?" Lady Elara spoke softly. "I've seen many doctors, and many medicines have not worked. I've been thinking about what it could be, and now I have a theory." Cale's expression grew serious again. "What is it?" "A witch's curse," Lady Elara said. The fear in Cale's eyes disappeared. Witchcraft. Growing up in the Swordfall Marches, witchcraft and curses were not unfamiliar to him. "As long as we find the person who cast the spell or the content of the curse, it can be lifted," he said. "The one who cast the curse must be nearby." Lady Elara couldn't help but smile, though Cale could not see it. "Yes. So we don't need a doctor. We need to solve my injury in another way," she said, reaching out her hand to him. Cale immediately walked over and leaned against her. "You don't need to be afraid, Lara," he said. "We will find a way to solve it." Lady Elara nodded. "Go wash up and get a good night's sleep. When you're well rested, you can help your sister." Cale went to wash up, his morale renewed. The children of Lord Thorne were never afraid of danger or a good fight. The lights in the room went out. Cale was asleep, snoring softly. Lady Elara sat on the bed for a while, then withdrew her hand from patting him and stood up. Outside, Mistress Glynis saw the lights go out and, as usual, extinguished the lamps on the walkway before going to sleep in the side room. Everything fell into darkness. Lady Elara walked to the window, raising her arm and letting the sleeve fall. In the darkness she could not see the wound, but she could feel the fiery pain. She had not felt this much pain in a while. The pain was now spreading throughout her body, and she was sure that more sores were appearing on her arm. This was all because of the words she had spoken today. "I do not want to marry into House Blackwood." She had not lied to Cale. Her wounds were indeed not just wounds, but she had also lied to him. It was not a curse from someone else. It was from herself. The wounds were a form of decay, much like a corpse, because she was in fact a dead person. This theory seemed absurd, and she herself hadn't believed it at first. But after repeated tests she had to accept it. She had been reborn and woken up in the middle of the night. Her escort was complicated, with soldiers from the Thorne family in Riverbend Hold, troops from the Swordfall Marches, and people from House Blackwood. If she had simply announced she was going home, it would have caused many problems and she would not have gotten what she wanted. So she had made a swift decision to sneak out of the way station with 2 maids and 2 attendants. The maids and attendants were old servants from the Swordfall Marches who only took orders from her, and would not question her reasons. Not long after they left the way station, it started to pour rain. She hadn't thought it was a sign. Then they were caught in a landslide. The 2 maids, 1 attendant, and their horses were all crushed under the rocks. Luckily, Paige Finn was quick and managed to pull her out, and the 2 of them survived by a stroke of luck. Even then, she hadn't thought it was anything other than a normal accident. Then the rain stopped and morning came. The bright sunlight shone on her body, and her exposed skin felt like dry wood catching fire. She could not see the flames, but she could feel the burning sensation. She screamed and rolled around on the ground. Paige Finn found a country doctor. The doctor was helpless with a girl who had no visible injuries but was screaming in pain. Just when she thought she was going to burn to death, a desperate Paige Finn, hearing her cries of fire, frantically splashed water on her, beat at her with a broom and finally covered her with her cloak. Without the sunlight, shrouded in the shadows, she was able to breathe a sigh of relief. After that, she saw many doctors and conducted test after test, and finally had to accept the truth. She could not be in the sunlight. It wasn't just sunlight. She couldn't be in the light of a cloudy day either. As long as it was daytime, she could not be exposed. She had to wrap her head and body in black cloths and carry a large black umbrella to be able to move normally. But she knew this was not normal. At this time, she still hadn't considered it a sign. She thought she had contracted a strange illness, but that changed one day while she was talking with Paige Finn. Paige Finn had asked her where to go next. Up until then, she had always said they were returning to Riverbend Hold. She was wrapped in black robes and under a black umbrella, no longer suffering the unbearable fiery pain, but the sores on her body were increasing, and the pain was constant. With every step she took, it felt like a new wound appeared. The pain made her numb and disoriented. It was more painful than dying. Perhaps it's better to go to Valoria? She thought. As soon as she had that thought and said the words, she was suddenly thrown into an ice cellar. Her burning body instantly froze, and the pain vanished. She hadn't felt this sensation in a long time. It was an astonishing moment. She could not believe it. Her mind, once numb, became sharp. She finally understood. Everything, the heavy rain, the landslide, the burning sensation in the sunlight, the festering body, was because she was a dead person, and heaven would not allow her to live.